should we pass that one around? And this one can go.
That one is no cable.
Ian, will this be on K-Learn at some point?
We're recording it and we'll have it out on YouTube.
Okay. Perfect. Hence the need for okay. Oh, we got one more.
Yay!
Welcome.
For being late, we got to sit on the stool.
Yes. In what?
We're in talk.
Glad you took your time. That's what I can tell my kids all the time. Take your time. Don't rush.
Very good excuse.
All right, well, we'll call the meeting to order. And I think we've got a special presentation. Jamie, are you going to take it away?
We do, and today we have with us members of the Superintendents Forum. So Dr. Maher meets with a group of 16 students, representation from each of the schools throughout the first and second semester of each year. Then that group rotates then for the next year after that. So he has a variety of topics that he meets with those students on once a week, and they have breakfast down there and go through and have discussions on those things. And one of the topics was the district facility needs. And obviously, as a district, as we're going through to try to gain input from our community, part of our community, and obviously the users of the buildings are our students. And so one of the other areas to be able to gain some insight and background from our students. Now, we obviously have multiple different times and dates upcoming where people can, as a community, including our student population, share some of that input and time. But just to be able to be with us here today and to be able to give us some of that insight. Many of these students that come to the Superintendent's Forum are building leaders as students, and hopefully eventually will be community leaders. And as Deanne had said earlier, also to be back in our schools at some point in time as teachers and leaders, or if not, in our community as leaders. So the part that we will go through today is just to be able to allow the board to ask questions. We do have some questions that we'll go and ask, but if you have some follow-up questions you'd like to ask them as well on some of these topics, and Deanne will lead us through most of that. But I'll just start off, and we're going to have the students be able to go through and introduce themselves, and also just so we have a little bit of a context, be able to just say what elementary, middle school, and high school you went to. Unless it was a private elementary, then we don't want to know. So Isaiah, we will start with you clear on the end.
So I'm Isaiah Henderson, and I went to Rosa Parks Elementary School, K through 5th, and then I went to Patrick Henry Middle School, and now I'm a sophomore at Washington.
I'm Tatiana Chance. I went to Oscar Howe and Hayward Elementary, and then I spent my middle school years in Laverne, and then I now go to New Tech High School.
I'm Sanaya Dunn. I'm a junior. I went to R.F. Pettigrew and Discovery for elementary school, Memorial Middle School for middle school, and now I'm at Lincoln.
I'm Jaren Mediger. I went to both John Harris Elementary and Discovery Elementary. For middle school, I went to Memorial, and now I'm at Roosevelt.
Hi, I'm Ann Madsen, and I went to the Challenge Center for elementary school, and then I went to Edison Middle School, and now I'm a senior at Lincoln High School.
Hi, I'm Jane Walsh. I went to Eugene Field Elementary School, and then Whittier Middle School, and I'm now enrolled at Washington High School.
I'm Joshua Schluter. I went to Madison Elementary School, then I went to Axel Park and George McGovern Middle School, and now I'm at Roosevelt High School.
So we're just going to kick off here, and we prepared, just so you all know, we prepared a list of questions, presented them to the students a couple of days ago, so they had a chance to think about what they were going to say. We know this time is valuable. We'll spend about 30 minutes going through. We want you to ask questions. So if they say something, you can go ahead and ask, and we'll get you a microphone as they're discussing, so we don't have to come back and try to remember where we were at in that part of the conversation. In terms of facilities, we want to know what the best thing is about your high school. And with that, what do you wish that every high school had? It could be an experience, it could be an activity, it could be, a fixture in the bathroom. What is the best thing about your high school? And what do you believe we should consider when we're considering schools in the future? What features does a new school need to have, no matter the level? Who wants to kick it off? Sidnea, go ahead.
Just pick it up or just
You
talk?
can leave it.
Okay. Well, me personally, since I play a bunch of sports, I think that a gym, just in general, is just an amazing thing to have. No matter if it's a band concert or any type of game, if you have a nice and big gym, it's just good for everybody, I think. Yeah.
At Roosevelt, we started my sophomore year, and I'm a junior now. We started this saying the "We Are One," and that's probably been my favorite thing that we started. And I just think I don't know, not every school needs you don't need a slogan for that, but just the aspect of you are one school and supporting each other in events. I think every high school and every school should have that kind of thing.
I know one of the great things that I know a lot of people at WHS love about Washington is that we have a kind of a great diversity level in economic and racial and religious and political. And I think since high school is sort of a test run for how you're going to participate in your community when you become an adult, I think if we're going to have a new facility, we need to be able to, that the kids going into it are from different areas of town or from different backgrounds, just because I think that's a very positive thing that we have at WHS.
I think it's very helpful that Washington has a auditorium, and not just any old auditorium. It's big. We have a pretty big auditorium. It can seat a lot of people, so that's super helpful for whenever we're doing activities for our school, whether it be a choir concert or something like that. Just to have that space to put a lot of people in, and even if we're doing school assemblies or rallies, just our auditorium is just a great place to use. Having the space at the high schools to be able to hold the various different events and activities that we have outside of school hours is something that's been really big amongst all the high schools, whether it's band or sports and whatnot.
And I think having these different buildings, a gym or a chorus room, a band room, I think it allows kids to explore what they're passionate about and try new things and have the resources to be able to do that.
At New Tech, we do project-based learning, and I like that. We learn in a different way. It's more hands-on, so I feel like we should at least have something where, because everyone has different learning styles, some other type of learning styles be implemented in classrooms.
Anybody else on that particular topic?
As a school district, we're looking at facility plans. One potential is we build more school space, such as a high school, middle school, but more school space. What are your thoughts on that topic?
Okay, well, going to Lincoln and seeing the space around our school, we don't have much space left to build on, so expanding would have to go to Roosevelt and Washington, which they don't have very much space either. So expanding might be difficult, or some would probably say impossible, but.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you expand on Roosevelt, you're taking away our parking spot. And we already struggle with that. So I think, and then again, you can only go up, and we already are on our second level, and going to a third, it's just at that point, it's just is it worth it? And I don't think it is to keep going up.
I would almost say just expanding, you'd be delaying the problem because there are so many students. I think the need would almost be towards building a new facility because you'd almost be taking away from the school itself.
Absolutely.
So my concern on that too as well would be if we keep getting just bigger schools, we're already the biggest schools in the state. And then are we driving ourselves away from competing and being part of the rest of our state in activities? And then we'd only be looking at Fargo or Sioux City or Omaha. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so just on not being able to compete with other schools?
Well, yeah, having to go outside of our state to participate, would that be a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, in your guys' thought process?
I guess I think it could be both. It kind of does widen our range, and we can be in new places, but also you kind of lose the South Dakota advantage too.
I guess when I think about, when I think about schools, I think about, like you guys are talking about having another school being more beneficial. And in my thoughts, I'm thinking some of you are athletes, some of you are in band, some of you are in theater, and there's only so many opportunities within your high school to participate. And so by adding more students to those high schools, you're actually reducing the opportunity for students to participate. So by adding another building, you're adding another basketball team, another band, and so you're getting 400 more, or however many students there are, get to participate in activities that they may otherwise have been either cut from or just not had the opportunity to participate in. And so when I think about growing bigger and then looking for bigger things to compete against, or do we try to stay kind of where we're at and we just give more kids the opportunity to explore their passions and to, develop their talents and things like that. So not really a question, but kind of a comment on the other side of that. And I hear you guys talking about things you're involved in and things that you enjoy, and thinking about trying to get kids into a gym when there's more kids to get into that gym or that auditorium or whatever in that community, I think gets a little bit diminished as the size grows.
Let me follow with this. Do you think there's a need, as students, do you think there's a need for new facilities or new buildings or additions?
Or where do you find it most troublesome? Space.
Always, definitely in the hallways.
You have 5 minutes to go in between classes. 5 minutes is enough time, but when you're going, if you have a class in the E-wing at Washington, for example, you have to go to the end of the, say, upper level A-wing. 5 minutes is not enough time, especially with all the kids in the hallways. If there weren't any people, 5 minutes is enough time, but with everyone in the hallways, it's so crowded. And so it just makes it super problematic getting from one place to another place quickly.
One thing on that is the hallway space, we're only getting more kids coming into each class each year. And over time, we're going to get to a point where we're going to be building up on space, and we're going to have to find some way to even out where everybody's going. Because then it will reduce the problems that we will be having in the future.
There's at Roosevelt, you asked, so the hallways are a big deal, yeah. But then our gym, we used to be able to fit every single student in our gym to have a pep rally. And this year we weren't supposed to have a homecoming pep rally because there's too many of us. And that kind of stinks. That's a big part of homecoming. So everybody was really bummed out, and they found a way to make it work, but at the same time, we were all really sad the whole week. But I think the gym is another thing, and if we had less students, then we'd have more space in our gym.
As you were introducing yourselves, I heard somebody went to Eugene Field, and somebody went to Rosa Parks, New Tech High, and some of the specialty schools that we have. If you got to just dream about additional specialty schools, other than All City and the things that I've mentioned, are there other specialized schools that you could think of, either elementary, middle, or high school, that if you got to dream, you thought might be good ideas for us to look at as we move forward with this?
Frankly, and so I went to Eugene Field, which is the arts orientated, and it was a really great experience, and I love Eugene Field. But I think if we add any more specialized school, it's going to take away the certain parts of a general education school that are so important. Because I loved Eugene Field, it was amazing, but I got to Whittier Middle School, and it was just sort of oh, this is what life is like, and it was amazing, and that's why I loved Whittier so much, is because it was big, and it was loud, and it was real. And I think if we're gonna try to specialize more, it's just we're gonna lose other areas that you're gonna get in a general high school.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Thanks.
We can't build a building tomorrow. So what do we do if we are able to build a building? What do you all think of split schedules? Like, for example, some kids would come in earlier, maybe 7:15 in the morning, and then be done at 2:15 or whatever, and then to alleviate some movement of that. Something interested? What feedback would you think of that?
With the split schedule, I'm just wondering how activities and things like that would work. So if half the people got out at 2:15, then theater and basketball and things like that, how would that work more? So I don't think that would work very well if there was a split schedule.
Yeah. It'd help you get into a different school for the activity.
But then if half the people are still in school during practice, it doesn't.
The other thing too is if you have a split schedule, at some point everybody's gonna have to be in the building. So like it will help for some periods, but at the same time we're all gonna be there at one point.
And how some of the ways they can do it as lunch would be different. And,
Yeah.
Things could be worked out. But I'm just until we could get. That's not the long-term solution. I'm just thinking like because especially Roosevelt is the one I'm thinking of where we're having an issue right now. Being really
If we could build a new high school, what would you like to see in the new facility?
I would love to see more diversity within teachers. And I've noticed that at Washington, there's a lot of diversity within the students, but there's not as much diversity within the teachers. I know, Jane, I don't know, Donia is literally the only teacher that I can think of that's diverse at Washington. So I would love to see more of that.
Same here. We have two teachers, Miss Nelson and Dr. Strello, and I only ever had Miss Nelson because Strello's an art teacher and I don't, or not art music teacher, I don't get to deal with that. So more of that and just maybe more space too for like future, because obviously Sioux Falls is growing at the rate it's growing right now. Eventually 4 schools won't be enough either. So if we make it bigger, we can have more of a cushion for when they do get bigger. We'll have enough room for them for years to come. So.
And in the new school, I would say to build bigger hallways because no matter how big the school is, no matter how much you add on, the hallways are still going to be the same size. You can't really expand the hallways past what you've already built. So then just be prepared for hallway space.
I don't know if you're aware of the numbers, but how big is too big? How big of a school is too big of a school? Student-wise.
Like anything over 2,000 because we're at 2,000 at Lincoln and that's a lot right now. I mean, I don't think we're even at 2,000, we're a little bit under, but I know Roosevelt and Washington are way over and they're crowded all the time. So 2,000 might be like the limit of space for students that we have.
I've been in the hallway in Lincoln when the classes changed and I was grateful for my weight at that point. A little hectic in there. Yeah, thanks. Right when I say wait, thank you. Appreciate that.
So thinking back to your time in middle school, I heard, I think we've got a cross-section of all middle schools, but Memorial in particular, and maybe even Whittier, because we've been talking about those schools specifically. So we already know our high schools are pretty much overcrowded at this point, but think back to your middle school years. What do you think about, do you think we need a new middle school as well? Or for, Josh, I think you went to Whittier? George McGovern. Sorry, who went to Whittier? You did, okay, okay. And just thinking, Whittier is one of our oldest middle schools, so just think about that and if you have a response.
Yeah, I know me and Tati both went to Whittier, and we've heard a little bit of stuff in this group about redoing the building or assessing the problems with the building, which is a real problem, and we get that. I would caution that the things that are going on at Whittier Middle School are phenomenal. I went to Eugene Field, it was wonderful. I went to Whittier, it was a whole new world. And the things the teachers do there, I don't know if any of you spend a lot of time in any of those schools, but those teachers are parents to, 50% of that school, whether you have parents or not in the home. I felt like those teachers were there with anything I needed. And I would caution to, for lack of a better term, mess up the dynamic that's going on there, because it's in that neighborhood where we're very connected with, and we had the mural at the park, we have the art on the utility boxes around. I think that school has something really special going on that caution not to alter too much.
Only thing about Whittier that I would say, there are a lot of different levels that make getting to different classes hard. Because I remember getting to band, which is on the bottom basement floor, then getting up to fax was like a lot of different series of levels and different staircases. I know, like, first getting there in 6th or 7th grade, seemed very huge to me, but as it goes on, it got better, but it was still like a little bit of a problem level-wise. But I agree with Jane. I love the dynamic of the school. It has such a great culture and a strong, positive culture there, and I love it.
Yes, even at Memorial too, with like distance studies, because I got there and I was in 8th grade when the start of the new expansion came for like the 2 8th grade like extra, like, I don't know what they're called, like teams.
Yeah.
Teams, yes, thank you. But even getting from like the back corner of one team to gym, and because we had 3 minutes, was nearly impossible. Like, I had to run, and I don't like to run, so running was kind of a turning point for me. So I was like, no. So
Another thing with Memorial too is like when we were in 8th grade, they added on 2 teams, which is a lot of students. And my brother is.
Like how many 8th grade teams were there when you were there?
There was 3, and then they added 2 more. But they still kept the 3, but we had 2 teams that didn't have like a team area.
yeah.
So it gave those 2 teams an area to be. But now my brother's an 8th grader, and they have had to add a team onto every grade level there, and maybe one more on the 6th grade. I'm not sure, but that many more students has already came through, and so there's now 3 teams that don't have team areas, and so it's just like within the 3 years we've been gone, it's already grown that much.
And how important is it then to have that team area?
Well, I just think as like a 5th grader coming in and you don't have a team area and you don't know the school, like I would have been scared. So I think a team area, and it kind of like it's like your little safety box there. So it was nice to have.
I was gonna, go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree with her.
I was gonna ask a little bit more about culture and that feeling of connectedness in your building. And you sort of alluded to that when you're a 5th grader moving into 6th grade, and that feeling, that sense of where do I go, is this my home kind of thing. So talk a little bit about the importance of school culture to students. Do you think about the culture of your school, or is it just one of those far out things that you hear adults mention and it doesn't really mean much to you?
Culture is a huge thing to me, personally, because like even elementary school, you have your one class of 30, and because that was me, because that's still pretty big, but that one class of 30 was like your family for the entire year. Like, you guys were friends, you'd have sleepovers with people in that class, you didn't really know anybody else besides your classroom. And then you get to middle school, and then you have your team, which is obviously bigger, but yet you still have that 100 or so kids who were still like all your friends because you knew all of them. And it's just kind of like a smoother transition, because now, I mean, I don't know everybody obviously at Lincoln, but I know people in my class. I know probably close to 200 people. So just that smooth transition of having your friends with you like all the way up through, and like having that ability to see your friends like in that team area is just like a huge part of like probably even development, like just to have that rock almost to know where you're going.
Definitely. I know New Tech has a really great culture because we're a smaller school. We're with the same people. Like, we have block schedules, so then half the group is with the teachers at some certain point, but you're with the same 50 people all day, and you get so close with them, and you're doing group work all the time, so you really get to know them. And being comfortable with your group members, being comfortable with your schoolmates, it makes learning easier, and you're more comfortable asking questions to them, because it's easier to ask your friend questions than asking the teacher. So if you don't have that culture of being able to be with your peers, being comfortable with them, then it kind of loses on the educational side.
At some of the middle schools, Georgia McGovern in particular, that in the last few years, they've had to make like multiple teams to spread out the students, and the students don't all get to see everybody in their class outside of that team because they meet up in their groups on in different days, and they don't get to really meet with everybody. And this is a brand new school, and they don't have all the space for everybody that's there to get to congregate, I guess.
Tatiana, I'm going to put you on the spot here as a new tech so the rest can relax. What would be the pros and cons of having new tech as part of a new building, a new high school, but being a part of that new high school?
I think for a pro would definitely be activities. I do theater at Washington with Jane and Isaiah, and being able to be at the big school with new tech as like a wing or something, that could help me get to different activities and be easier that way. But as a con, I've been talking to a lot of people, and then a lot of what helps new tech be new tech is the smaller culture that we have, and we're able to know other people. And I think that in Sioux Falls, with a city as big as we are, some people, they don't want to be in that big place. So having new tech as a smaller school can allow those people who don't want to be in a big overcrowded place like Lincoln or Roosevelt, Washington, to be able to be smaller school and more connected, because some people thrive off of that, I feel.
Thank you.
We're going to go back to that culture. You continue to mention that. Can the design of a building help promote a positive culture? And if so, how? I'm not saying you have to use architectural like words or anything, but how can that help? You talked a little bit about team areas in the middle schools, auditoriums.
Yeah.
So maybe we feel like we've covered that.
It's just sorry. I think auditoriums are great. Like new tech, we're small enough we can meet in a lunchroom, but that's a time when the whole school is together. So if you have a place where, like the lunchroom, auditorium, where everyone can be there in there together. So we have pep rallies in the lunchroom, but I know like other places, sometimes we stay on the STI side, and then it's kind of a place where we can kind of hang out and lounge a little bit. Not saying that people should lounge during school, but some place they can like hang out, have a little bit of fun, talk with their friends, do homework, study. I think that helps a lot.
I'm going to be honest, I don't think the architecture or design of the building is going to impact the culture of what we've been saying that much. I think it's the people in the building and it's the teachers in the building. And sometimes if we're focusing on how crowded the hallways are and how wide they are, I think we're losing some of the more important issues. I think overcrowding is a problem, I agree with that, but it's 3 minutes during the day. I think we can survive for a little bit. It's a little overcrowded.
Yeah, I agree with Jane. Like, you give us a school and we're gonna make like a school out of it. Like, we're gonna be a family. And like, I don't know, I give credit to Mr. Hazlett. Like, he took that "We Are One" slogan and it's on the announcements every day. He comes on, gives speeches about it. Like, you can see how passionate he is about it. And when you see like your head principal be passionate about something, like, it lights a fire under the students. And we're like, we want to do it for him. And like, the way you make a building, that's not going to take that away from the student body.
There are districts around us that offer different formats for learning. So it could be online, or you go part of the day, or you do other things outside of class. And I'm curious what you guys think about as you talk about seeing your peers throughout the day and how important your teachers are. What's your impression of how some piece of it being an online, maybe alleviating students from having to be in a building and giving them time to be at home and learn? How do you guys feel about that?
I think, I think that it may work for some students, but for the majority of kids, I think that it's really important to be in the traditional classroom. Just the interaction you get with your peers and with your teachers. I just think that the inspiration and the encouragement that you can get from teachers and from your peers is something that would be very, very difficult to find from a computer or something. And so I think, although it may work for some students, I think for the majority of students, the traditional classroom is really important, that environment.
Yeah, going off of what you said, I think, yeah, learning from like a computer or something, that definitely takes away the community aspect of being in a classroom. And even if you like hands-on learning and that's more easy for you to learn something like that, you can't really get that from a computer as well as you could from being in a physical classroom. I do think it would be a good idea if, say, you were sick and you had to miss school, maybe you could catch up what you were doing, catch up on what the class was doing that day on your computer at home. We kind of already do that in some of my classes, so I don't know how much further you could take it, but yeah.
You go ahead. Okay.
Kind of going off what they both said, like when you're doing a project online by yourself and you're stuck, you have no one to help you besides your parents, and your parents, no matter like long ago they graduated, they might not know what the teacher asked of you, like, but when you are at a school where you have your classmates and you can say, hey, I don't know what to do with this, I'm trying to convey this idea, how can I do it in a better way? Your peers will help you and your teachers will help you to overall get a better grade and a better outcome to overall help your teacher.
Yeah, I think like at school you learn a lot of the skills you need for your future, and like group work, when you're learning how to collaborate with people that you might not necessarily like get along with. If you were to hang out, you might not get along with them, but you have to put that aside and get through the project together. And I think like in the real work world, you're gonna face that every day. And if you learned from a computer, you didn't learn how to do that, you might not do good at your job. But like Isaiah said, I think an alternative to that is you could like promote online learning more, like always have the option available. Like I didn't even know, like going into high school, that you could even do that. And it's not pushed, and I think it should be something that we know is there. Like every class could be have it available to be online, but not required.
I agree with all that. New Tech is all group work. Everything that we do is group work. So having a strictly online class would be hard. Not necessarily that way, but like if you wanted to do an online class, I would say to meet in the classroom with that environment like 2 or 3 times a week, so you could ask questions when you could, if that's something that we do need to do.
Thank you.
We'll shift gears here and talk specifically about your elementary schools. What should a great elementary school include? If we built a brand new school and you could put something in it, what would that be?
Has a cool playground.
I have an elementary kid. Playgrounds are important.
They're very important. I mean, besides that kind of stuff, just maybe like just a more like friendly environment, because as you like move up in elementary school, it kind of goes from like this happy, like go lucky, like hey, there's a spot for you guys to all sit in a circle, there's a spot for you guys to take a nap and like play games or whatever, to rows of desks and a smart board and nothing else. That's how my 5th grade teacher was. And so if we kind of just had like a more friendly and open environment, like all the way through, not necessarily saying nap time, but like just time just like relax like throughout the day, and just a space to be able to do that with all the kids would be important.
But you didn't say we shouldn't have a nap time either.
I mean, yeah, we can if we want. I like that. I mean, I like that in high school too. So.
Others?
I think the main thing about an elementary school, and I don't know how this would manifest itself in the design of a new elementary school, but I think in elementary school, that's where you learn that school is the place you want to be. No matter how we design it, it needs to be immediately from kindergarten that they want to go to school. Because I know now, sometimes getting up in the morning, like, oh, I don't you don't want to go to high school or middle school, but there's something there that makes you get up every morning. And I think if we start that immediately in elementary school, it'll carry on, and we're going to see less dropout rates and better grades throughout their public education career.
Kind of following that, some of the, when I was in elementary school, I didn't go into the Sioux Falls School District. I was in Madison Elementary, here in South Dakota still. But one of the things that I remember most as like a school, we would all, and we had group activities where we could still learn and still kind of congregate and get to know everybody. And it kind of gives you that reason you kind of want to go to school at like 8, 9 years old. And some of the biggest stuff we did, I don't think they do it anymore, but we were learning about South Dakota history and legislature, and we went to the Capitol. But stuff like that, even if we aren't able to do that in a big district like this, but having those activities available is something that would really help motivate the students.
And I don't think that elementary students are too picky architecturally wise, because I don't remember what my elementary looked like. So
Yeah.
nothing
I
like
agree.
outstanding qualities. Like, don't have to have this big glass chandelier. Just somewhere where they feel comfortable at home, where it's fun.
Yeah, John Harris, to me, still is a maze. Like, I don't understand how to get one place to the next. But when I was in elementary school, that didn't matter. It's like, I think it's like all about the color and stuff. Like, make it fun to be around.
The colors, nap time, playground.
Yep.
Mr. Kreider is happy that there's no chandeliers. Any questions from the board before we have them wrap up with any final statements?
It's kind of a simple question. How many of you have taken classes at CTE? Of you, so none of you have. How many maybe wanted to and were unable to due to scheduling because of the transportation and timing in class? 2 of you. And then how many maybe is because the classes that offered weren't of interest to you? So if we build a new high school or we add on to high schools, if we brought them back to the schools, would it be more opportunity for you to do it?
Yeah, definitely. Because like, if I could have like that lab that they have in health careers at Lincoln, that'd be so nice for me, because me traveling from Lincoln to to CTE, then back to my house, which is by Roosevelt, and then like all the way around, it's just chaotic and stressful for me. So that's why I never did it. And then my schedule on top of that, I just wanted to focus. But if I could have like a health careers class at Lincoln, I would be more than willing to do that.
Or what about another thought besides that is like some schools, like at New Tech, they have the block scheduling, and at Watertown is another example. They have block scheduling where you would have, you'd only have 4 classes per semester, so you'd have 2 periods of 1 class each thing, so you'd have that transportation issue. Is that something kids would be interested in, or what do you think of that idea? To allow for the transportation to and from.
I like it, but I know at New Tech they both have block schedules, but it's like a different block schedule, so it's like ever so slightly different, because we get out at 2:30 and they get out differently. So I'm like, I know for me CTE was like I'd have to stay in school for an extra 36 minutes, and that was just kind of
Well, you're commuting back to Washington, right?
For
Correct?
activities as well. Yeah.
I don't know, the block scheduling to me, like, not me personally, I mean, I think I could do it, but I think some kids are like, oh, if I can get through this 50-minute period because I don't like this class, then I'll be on to my next class that I do like. And if you're in a block schedule and you're stuck in there for 2 hours, you might just not see kids show up.
at least at our school we kind of like have like one block, like split the block in half, so like block 1A, so it's like 52 minutes in each class. But we do have some combined courses, so then that helps out too. So it's you only in like one class for 2 hours, if that makes any difference.
Any final thoughts here from our students as we wrap up on just with the the number of students we have in our elementary, as Dr. Maher has stated multiple times, as they move up through, there's over 1,000 students more currently in the elementary in the 4 grades than we can even have currently in the high schools. Any more thoughts on that of what we should do, in your opinion, with the number of students coming up in our facilities?
I would agree.
I think one thing is, I think we should do a high school when we can, because that's going to be the hardest to do, just because it's the biggest. I think eventually we can always but find a land where a smaller building like an elementary school can be made. And I think the longer we put off a high school, the bigger our problems are going to be. So I think that's where I would go next.
Absolutely. No?
I'm curious what you guys think, because I think most of you went to middle school here and then high school, and so there are other kind of methods or other building designs where you might have a 5th and 6th grade in one building and a 7th and 8th grade in another building. So any feelings on that, or even I know people who have more of a junior high and they do a 7, 8, 9, so then you remove the 9th graders from a high school and have them, or a 9th grade academy. Like, there's all sorts of different kind of structures to a high school. So just in general, kind of what are your feelings when you think about that, having been, through all of those stages already? What would that look like to you, or how do you think that would feel?
I like the structure now personally because, for high school, I like having that freshman type mentality. Then you work your way up to being the kings and queens of the school. And in middle school, you have that mini version of that where it's like, okay, I'm a baby now, but wait till I'm in 8th grade. So it's like that. When you're 5th and 6th, it's like, oh, you're either on the top or you're on the bottom, and there's no in between. With that break, and if there's 9th grade, it's just 9th grade, and there's no intermix between where you can be with someone who's older than you and still feel comfortable, versus being that kind of thing. So with what we have now, I feel like as far as culture-wise is probably the best option. But
I agree. I learned a lot as a freshman from seniors and upperclassmen from different people. So having that people who already have their life together, they know what they're doing, and it's an easier way to ask for advice. Like, hey, what am I doing here? Because they already been through this. They know the wheels. They have done it before. So I feel like taking that away would eliminate that.
And I think it's kind of almost an established community of 9th through 12th graders in high school. You, like Sydney said, the freshmen and through the seniors, it's kind of a community. And also you get to learn from people older than you, since a lot of times your classes, you may be a freshman with a bunch of juniors. Mm-hmm. So you definitely get to learn from other students too.
Thank you.
Well, we are at our time, because we do need to leave Mr. Vick some time to be able to talk about the legislature and bills. So we thank our students for being here with us today and appreciate your leadership in each of those buildings and your insight as well this afternoon. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
thank you. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just kidding. We also have board reports, so we'll just do a few of these today. Talked with Dr. Maher. We won't take any actions, but we'll go through them today on the key bills. Let the board, if they want to make changes to them, we can do that. And then we'll go through the rest of them on Monday night and then get official action from the board. So I think there's one here that I have flagged that's not key, but approximately there's 10 key bills for us to look at quick. So the first one is on page 3. House Bill 1120, that provides equal access for homeschool students to participate in high school activities association. Of course, we have that as key. We have it as oppose. The bill would allow homeschool students to choose what services they receive and what rules they have to follow by effectively exempting them from all academic and non-other team-related rules, i.e. passing X number of classes, school attendance on game day, etc. My position is the academic eligibility requirement for homeschool students is not very strong. That came up in committee. The bill may also put homeschool students above their public school peers by automatically giving them an open enrollment right to any team or activity in any school they want in the district, potentially moving from school to school depending on the season or the activity. We don't know exactly if that's was intended by the bill, but it reads, it's kind of iffy on that. So we have that as opposed. The bill died in committee but was smoked out. It'll be on the floor tomorrow, I think, and it might even be today. And it they got a 38-30 vote to calendar it. Since it got smoked out, they had to vote. So that might show you how it's going to fare in the House. Who don't know for sure. But anyway, we have that as an opposed. Any questions or on that bill? Okay, Senate, and then another key bill is right below that then, same page. 1128 requires districts to increase their teacher compensation by 85% of the increase in the state aid formula each year, or the state would be reduced by $500 per teacher. The state aid would be reduced by $500 per teacher employed in the district. We have that as opposed as well. We think it's micromanaging of teacher compensation. You know, we understand why they put that in when they passed the half-cent sales tax and increased statewide by 9.1%. The legislature wanted some accountability on that. This would put that accountability in each and every year. Schools would have to meet that. We've looked back. We went back to the first full year of the per student formula, which goes back to '98, and through FY14, the average teacher salary increase was 2.3%. State aid increase over that period of time, the average increase was 1.9. There's a myth, I think, among some legislators that they give money to schools and schools spend it elsewhere or put it into reserves, and it hasn't borne out over time. And then in the actual year that the half-cent sales tax was increased, state aid went up statewide by an average of 9.1%. Teacher salaries went up 11.7%. It's fixing a problem that doesn't exist. However, so you say, so then why worry about it? Well, year to year, you might have contracts that work out where you get bigger increases in one year, you get smaller increases in another, and then if you have turnover, you can't necessarily fit that in. And then there's a committee to possibly let you out of it, but if your excuse is good enough, and then if that committee approves that, then it has to go to a legislative, so you got to get it right by two committees. So it's just like, just let the process play out. It has played out over going all the way back, 20 years basically. It's played out fine. You don't need to micromanage schools. You guys are elected. Local control is important. Legislators say that as well. They don't want to be told by Washington how to run their affairs. I understand that, and I think that should work for school boards as well. I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, it's odd. So it's some, I don't know. I think some of them think it's better for schools, and I'm just like, oh. Yeah, right. Although, well, the $500, you lose $500 a teacher. Just get rid of all your teachers, I guess. So, anyway, we have that as opposed. So then the next one is page 8. Oh, that's been assigned to Appropriations Committee. That means it'll probably sit there till the last possible day is what usually happens on that. So page 8, there's House Bill 1189. It's a reaction to that deal in Tri-Valley where there was seen as trying to lure homeschool students in for a day to count on the child, or for the state aid, the fall enrollment day, which is the last Friday in September. It would prohibit providing inducements for attending school and it essentially makes it a felony and provides revocation of the offender's certificate for knowingly over-reporting student numbers. It seems a little harsh, but I personally don't think that is so horrible. You shouldn't be knowingly over-report students. You shouldn't be bribing students to come in. Then it makes the fall enrollment date, the date of the count, a random day in the last 2 weeks of September. And you don't know what that day is until October. We think the bill should be amended to get rid of that and make it the last Friday in September, which it is now. Moving that day around, we'd started after Labor Day. That'd be in the first 2 weeks of school sometimes. And you get literally some kids that don't even know school started until they see a bus driving around their neighborhood. And those things fluctuate quite a bit in that beginning. So just leave that part alone. And if you want to make, if you want to get rid of the inducements, you want to make it illegal to induce kids to come to your school for a day, that's fine. And if you want to make a harsh penalty for lying about state aid, that's probably fine too, but let's not go overboard, which this bill seems to do. It's whoever it's whoever signs off on that knowingly does it. So it's not for the school board. You guys okay with that position? Just the position is to amend the bill to get, okay. We're opposed then, yeah. That's assigned to judiciary. It hasn't been acted on yet. Page 9, it's dead, but some bills come back. We found that on the homeschool bill. So we hadn't talked about this one yet. The prohibits schools from compensating labor union representatives, negotiators to negotiate. The bill would forbid district employees to receive pay for doing union activities. The bill has died. We have that as opposed. Just wanted to mention it. If you guys want us to change it, just in case the bill comes up in another form. Okay with that? The next one, 1211, is another bill that has died. It requires school district opt-outs to be referred to a vote, no others, just school district opt-outs. We had a pose on that. It died in committee, but if it comes back up, we see that as a key bill to oppose. Yeah, it's weird. I had page 13, I guess, is next key bill. 1242 has died. That one, that's Jamie's bill. Maybe he wants to talk about it, but it just died. It would allow students in a high school journalism course the freedom of expression in reporting information. Well, what it does is doesn't give editorial to the school personnel.
And all places do have editors, and the school should be and publishers, and the school should be no different in that. As we go through and try to teach the students truly what that will reflect. Right.
You want to do 1256 too? That's the same page, 1256. That's Jamie's bill, so I'll let him talk about it.
In that bill, it's just changing the start of the school age for the children and move it back relatively 2 years. So instead of between 5 and 6, they had mandatory start age between 7 and 8. Which means we would have students in high school that would be 18 as sophomores, and at 18 could drop out of school. There's obviously quite a few different things that would come up as potential problems in moving that back 2 years. So we do oppose that.
Did I read somewhere that it wasn't that you couldn't start your child at 5 or 6 like people traditionally do, but it would be the rule that you had to have started by whatever it is,
Yes.
7 or 8.
You're
But
correct.
I guess when I think about that, I think about a kindergarten class,
Yep.
then potentially having a 5 and a 7-year-old together.
You are correct. So a lot of 5 and 8-year-olds would then the same kindergarten class or first grade moving through.
Okay, the last key House bill is on page 15. I think it's related to that prior bill we talked about for the homeschool and activities. And this bill says if a school does not allow homeschool students to participate in activities or sports, they can opt out of paying the general fund property tax for schools. So we have that as opposed. There are lots of taxes there's lots of things we support that we're not allowed to participate in, and I'm sure there'd be a long list of, right, exactly. So, yeah, this bill is also signed to appropriation. We have it as oppose and key. I can't imagine it's going to go anywhere, but we still should oppose it. So, next one. Anybody have any House bills that they saw that they want to talk about before we go on to the Senate? It's just because we're crunched for time. Page 19 then is, it's not key, just we got it amended, so we have it as support now. That Senate Bill 46, the restraint and seclusion, we offered up, Kate Bartel Nowak offered up and offered up an amendment. They put it on, so we're cool with that bill now. We support it as amended. Page 20 is a key bill. The board has actually seen that one. It's passed Senate 4-3. Passed Senate Ed, I'm sorry, 4-3. It wasn't key when we first looked at it. We've changed it to key now. It looks like it's got some legs. Our position on that, and we oppose it. There are over 90 organizations that are listed as patriotic societies, and every one of them could demand time at every one of our schools. And it's just, I mean, they want kids to learn, the 3 R's, the 4 R's, whatever, reading, writing, arithmetic, is that what it is. So anyway, we have that as oppose, and it's key now. That part is new. Page, everybody good with that? Page 20, we just did that one. Page 22. It has died. It's, we did have it as oppose. It was key. It's provisions regarding the lawful possession of firearms in certain locations. It would essentially say if you didn't allow, that's me. I thought it was if you didn't like what I was saying, you just squelched it. We had this, the bill is dead. Our position on this was, the bill was that if you didn't allow firearms, you had to have a metal detector. I mean, we're not allowed to allow firearms, even if we wanted to. So it would be a huge expense to require firearms everywhere. So we have that as a oppose. Those are the key bills. Oh. Yeah, I wanted to. What was that, 84? I wanted to point that one out. That's right. Yeah, we do not show it as dead. So that bill, we originally said no position, and thought it over. One board member asked us to take a look at it. So we went back to oppose it, and it's the bill that would prevent public entities from entering into a. No, that's not the bill. I'm talking about the wrong one. I'm sorry. Kent, do you know the number on that one? Do you remember? Well, I can just. The bill it's passed. It's actually got through both houses. It was. That's not the number. The bill, I don't remember the number. The bill, though, it said that school districts should provide certain information for elections, and it was just school districts, and it wasn't municipalities, counties, anything else. Originally, we said we don't really like the idea. We don't understand but it has passed both houses. We did change it to oppose, though, and we plan to have it that way Monday night.
I'm talking about 84, we didn't vote on, but it says here we oppose it.
Oh.
That's the one I pulled out because that one wasn't on there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. We changed our position on the other one. 84, we had as oppose. We didn't have it approved. We still show it as not approved by the board. You want to talk about that one?
Is it still alive?
Yeah, that one is still alive. And it would prevent public entities from entering into a settlement agreement with a third party without providing at least certain elements of what the settlement was, including the dollar amount. And you saw our position, the administrative position, our recommendation is opposed. Confidentiality is a key component to reach a settlement agreement among the parties to a legal dispute. Without this component, settlement options will become less appealing to each of the parties involved in the dispute, and therefore increases the likelihood each party expends more resources with litigation.
So originally it was going to be just a summary and they amended it.
I'd let Kate chime in, yeah.
Without disclosing it. What the bill says. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So are we okay with the opposed? Okay.
Now that this changed.
All right, we still won't act on it, so we won't show it as board acted upon, but we probably won't spend as much time on or any time on these Monday night. Yeah, we will skip over these as we go through all the other bills quick Monday night. So we're not here all night Monday night. Thank you. So it passed today. To the House floor? No, it goes to the floor. Why is she? All right, you guys want to do reports? Thanks.
We'll try to move quickly through. Carly, you want to start?
We had a calendar committee meeting, and we're still taking some feedback. We had lots and lots of discussion about days off, requests from teachers. Should we have in-services on days that we have, a long break afterwards, because then that prevents teachers from being able to take time on either side of it and take time off for themselves. So Jamie's working on reworking a few options that we talked about, and we'll bring that back. We meet again at the end of the month. Is our next meeting. Workforce development at the chamber. We spent another meeting with Candy Hansen leading an activity on kind of identifying the key players in the community on workforce development and who's contributing at what levels, and trying to come up with a plan for how to move forward with that group. And then I missed Path. Do you have anything to add? Anything earth-shattering?
No, nothing earth-shattering.
Sports story, we're getting ready for the Summit League. The insurance. Walmart is getting really sick. Opioid prescriptions, they're just tightening up. If you're getting a root canal